Quan wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the clock on the wall. It was almost time to pick up Tai Min from the station's learning center. He had been working on a Drakveth cargo ship all morning, fixing the damaged cooling system in the engine room. The work was hard, but Quan enjoyed it. He had been a mechanic on Haven's Gate Station for 5 years now, ever since he and his son left Earth. The station floated in space between 3 different star systems. Ships from all over the galaxy stopped here to rest, refuel, and get repairs. Quan had seen many strange alien species during his time here, but the Drakveth always impressed him the most. They looked like the dragons from old Earth stories, with scales that shimmered in different colors and large wings folded against their backs. He packed up his tools and headed toward the learning center. The station's corridors were busy with aliens and humans walking in different directions. Some carried cargo, others talked in groups, and a few children ran past him laughing. Quan smiled. This place felt like home now. When he reached the learning center, Tai Min was waiting outside with his teacher. The 6-year-old boy had his backpack on and was bouncing on his feet with excitement. "Dad! Dad! Guess what happened today?" Tai Min shouted as soon as he saw Quan. "What happened?" Quan asked, ruffling his son's black hair. "There's a dragon egg in the biolab. Teacher Yuna took us to see it. It's huge and it glows purple." Quan looked at the teacher, a young woman named Yuna who taught the station's children. She nodded and smiled. "It's true," Yuna said. "The Drakveth ambassador brought an egg here yesterday. It was damaged during transport, so they're keeping it in our medical biolab for observation. I thought the children would find it educational." "Can we go see it again?" Tai Min asked, pulling on Quan's sleeve. "Please?" Quan checked the time. He had a few hours before his next job. "All right, let's go take a look." They walked together to the biolab on the station's medical level. The lab was a large room filled with equipment that monitored different life forms. In the center of the room, inside a clear protective chamber, sat an egg about the size of a large watermelon. It was dark purple with silver patterns that seemed to move across its surface. A soft glow came from inside. 2 Drakveth stood near the chamber. One was tall with deep blue scales, and the other had green scales with gold edges. They were speaking in their own language, which sounded like wind moving through a cave. A human doctor named Mi Ra was checking the readings on a screen nearby. She looked up when Quan and Tai Min entered. "Hello, Quan," Mi Ra said. "I heard your son visited earlier with his class." "He wanted to come back," Quan explained. "Is it okay if we watch for a few minutes?" "Of course. Just don't get too close to the chamber." Tai Min pressed his face close to the protective glass, his eyes wide with wonder. "Is the baby dragon okay inside?" Mi Ra smiled sadly. "We're not sure yet. The egg's shell cracked during a ship accident. We're trying to keep it stable until it hatches." The blue-scaled Drakveth turned toward them. His large golden eyes studied Tai Min with interest. When he spoke, a translator device on his collar changed his words to human language. "The small human child. He has kind eyes." "This is my son, Tai Min," Quan said, putting a hand on the boy's shoulder. "I am Velthra, ambassador of the Drakveth people," the dragon said, bowing his head slightly. "This egg belongs to my family line. The hatchling inside is very precious to us." "I hope the baby gets better," Tai Min said in his small voice. Velthra's eyes seemed to soften. "Thank you, young one. Your words carry warmth." They stayed for another 20 minutes. Tai Min asked many questions about dragons and their eggs. Velthra answered each one patiently. Quan could see that the ambassador was worried about the egg, though he tried to hide it. That evening, after Quan put Tai Min to bed in their small quarters, he sat down to read the station news on his datapad. There was a message from Mi Ra. "The egg hatched an hour ago. The hatchling seems healthy, but something strange is happening. Can you come to the biolab tomorrow morning? Quan felt curious but also a bit worried. He sent back a message saying he would come. The next morning, Quan dropped Taimin at the learning center and went straight to the biolab. When he arrived, he found a crowd of people outside the room. Mira stood at the door looking tired. She had dark circles under her eyes. "What's going on?" Quan asked. "The hatchling won't sleep," Mira said. "It's been awake since it broke out of the egg yesterday evening. Every time we try to help it rest, it cries and thrashes around. The Drakveth specialists don't know what to do." Through the door window, Quan could see the hatchling inside the chamber. It was about the size of a large cat, with silver scales that reflected the light. Its small wings flapped weakly, and it made soft crying sounds that broke Quan's heart. Velthra stood beside the chamber, speaking softly to the baby dragon. His face showed deep concern. "Why won't it sleep?" Quan asked. "We don't know," Mira said. "Hatchlings normally sleep for long periods after they're born. This one should be exhausted, but something is keeping it awake. If it doesn't rest soon, it could become very sick or even die." Quan watched through the window as the hatchling stumbled around inside the chamber. Its golden eyes looked around the room as if searching for something. At noon, Yuna brought the children to the biolab for their daily lesson. Taimin ran up to his father, surprised to see him there. "Dad, did the baby dragon come out of the egg?" "Yes, but it's having trouble sleeping," Quan said quietly. "Can I see it?" Mira overheard and nodded. "The children can look through the window. Maybe some visitors will help calm it down." The children pressed against the window, whispering excitedly. Taimin stood in front, his small hands on the glass. Then something strange happened. The hatchling, which had been crying and moving restlessly, suddenly stopped. Its golden eyes locked onto Taimin. It walked toward the glass on wobbly legs and sat down right in front of the boy. The crying stopped completely. Everyone in the hallway went quiet. "That's impossible," Velthra whispered, moving closer to the window. The hatchling pressed its small snout against the glass from the inside. Taimin giggled and pressed his hand against the same spot from the outside. The baby dragon's eyes started to close slowly. "It's falling asleep," Mira said in amazement. Within minutes, the hatchling curled up into a small ball right there on the floor, its breathing becoming slow and steady. It was finally sleeping, but only while Taimin stood at the window. Velthra looked at Quan with an expression of complete shock. "This should not be possible. How is your child doing this?" Quan had no answer. He stared at his son and the sleeping dragon, wondering what had just begun. The hatchling slept for 2 hours while Taimin stood at the window. The boy watched the baby dragon with fascination, not wanting to move. Other children from his class had already left with Yuna, but Taimin stayed behind with his father. When Taimin finally stepped away to get a drink of water, the hatchling's eyes opened immediately. It lifted its head and looked around in confusion. Within seconds, it started crying again, the same sad sounds as before. "No, no, please don't cry," Taimin said, running back to the window. As soon as the hatchling saw the boy, it calmed down. Its golden eyes focused on Taimin's face, and it made a soft cooing sound instead of crying. Mira was recording everything on her medical scanner. She looked at the readings and shook her head in disbelief. "The hatchling's stress levels drop dramatically when Taimin is in view. This doesn't make any scientific sense." Velthra paced back and forth in the hallway. His blue scales seemed darker than before, a sign of worry among his people. 2 more Drakveth had arrived at the station an hour ago. They were specialists who understood hatchling behavior. Both of them stood inside the biolab now, examining the baby dragon from a safe distance. One of the specialists, a female with copper-colored scales, came out to speak with Velthra. She spoke in their language, and the translator device worked to change her words. "Ambassador, this situation is very unusual. The hatchling has bonded with the human child. This type of bond normally happens with the hatchling's mother, or the one who tends the egg. But this child never touched the egg before it hatched. "How is this possible?" Velthra asked. The specialist tilted her head. "Our eggs are designed to sense warmth and safety. In the old days, before our technology, hatchlings would bond with whoever made them feel most secure. They would recognize this being by sensing their presence. Perhaps the damaged egg created an unusual sensitivity. Perhaps the hatchling sensed something from this human child that we cannot detect." Quan listened to their conversation with growing concern. "What does this mean for my son?" Velthra turned to face him. "In our culture, when a hatchling bonds like this, the bond must be respected. The hatchling believes your son is its guardian. If we separate them, the baby will refuse to eat or sleep. It could die within days." "You're saying my son has to stay with the dragon?" Quan asked, his voice rising. "He's 6 years old. He has school. He has a normal life." "I understand your concern," Velthra said calmly. "This is not a situation any of us wanted, but the hatchling's life depends on it now. We will find a solution, but right now we need your son's help to keep the baby alive." Quan looked at Taimin, who was still standing at the window. The boy was making funny faces at the hatchling, and the baby dragon tried to copy him. Despite everything, Taimin looked happy. "How long will this last?" Quan asked. The copper-scaled specialist answered. "Usually a bonding period lasts several weeks. After that, the hatchling becomes more independent, but every case is different." Mira stepped forward. "We need to run more tests. I want to understand what's happening between Taimin and the hatchling. Maybe there's a medical explanation." For the rest of the day, Mira performed various scans while Taimin sat in a chair near the chamber. The hatchling stayed calm the entire time, sometimes sleeping, sometimes playing with its small wings. Quan stayed too, canceling his afternoon work. His boss, the station's chief engineer, understood the unusual situation. That evening presented a new problem. Taimin needed to go home, eat dinner, and sleep in his own bed. But when they tried to leave, the hatchling became frantic. It threw itself against the chamber walls, crying louder than before. The sound was heartbreaking. "We have to do something," Mira said. "The hatchling is going to hurt itself." Velthra made a decision. "Bring the chamber to the child's home. We will set it up in your quarters." "Our quarters are very small," Quan protested. "Then we will move you to larger quarters," Velthra said firmly. "The Drakveth government will cover all expenses. This hatchling is important to my family and my people. We will do whatever is necessary." Within 2 hours, Quan and Taimin were moved to a bigger living space on the station's residential level. The new quarters had 2 bedrooms, a living area, and enough space for the protective chamber. Station workers carefully transported the chamber with the hatchling inside. The baby dragon watched nervously during the move, but as long as it could see Taimin, it stayed relatively calm. That night, Taimin ate his dinner while sitting next to the chamber. The hatchling watched him eat with curious eyes. Quan had brought food for the baby dragon too, a special mixture that Drakveth hatchlings needed. But the baby wouldn't touch it. "Why isn't it eating?" Taimin asked, worried. The copper-scaled specialist, whose name was Shira, checked on them before leaving for the night. She examined the hatchling through the chamber's monitoring system. "Hatchlings sometimes refuse food when they're stressed," Shira explained. "It should eat tomorrow when it feels more comfortable." But the next day, the hatchling still wouldn't eat. It drank a little water but ignored the food. Shira and Velthra returned, both looking more worried than before. "This is becoming critical," Shira said. "The hatchling must eat within the next day, or it will become too weak." Taimin pressed his hand against the chamber. "Please eat, little dragon. The food is good for you." The hatchling touched its snout to the glass where Taimin's hand was. It made a soft sound, but still didn't turn toward the food bowl. Mira had been running tests all morning. She studied her scanner readings with a confused expression. I'm detecting something odd. When Taimin is calm and happy, there's a faint electromagnetic signature coming from his body. It's very subtle. I've never seen this pattern before. What does it mean? Quan asked. I don't know yet, but the hatchling seems to respond to it. Watch this. Mira asked Taimin to take a deep breath and relax. The boy closed his eyes and breathed slowly, the way his father had taught him for bedtime. On Mira's scanner, a gentle wave pattern appeared. At the same moment, the hatchling's body seemed to relax too. Its wings, which had been slightly raised, lowered against its body. It made a contented sound. There's definitely a connection, Mira said, but I need to understand what it is. Over the next few days, the situation grew more desperate. The hatchling lost weight. Its silver scales became dull. It still wouldn't eat, though it drank water when Taimin encouraged it. The baby dragon only seemed truly comfortable when Taimin was nearby and calm. Taimin stopped going to school. He stayed home with the hatchling all day. Yuna brought him lessons to do at home. The boy didn't complain. He seemed to understand that the baby dragon needed him. Quan watched his son sitting on the floor next to the chamber, reading a book out loud. The hatchling lay inside, listening to Taimin's voice with its eyes half closed. They looked peaceful together, but Quan knew this couldn't continue. The baby dragon was dying slowly. More Drakveth specialists arrived at the station. They tried everything they knew. Special foods, different chamber environments, even playing recordings of adult Drakveth voices. Nothing worked. The hatchling only responded to Taimin. On the 5th day, Velthra called a meeting in the biolab. Mira, Quan, Shira, and 3 other specialists gathered around a table. The station's commander, a woman named Haiwan, joined them too. We are running out of time, Velthra said, his voice heavy. The hatchling will die if we cannot solve this mystery. Dr. Mira, have your tests revealed anything useful? Mira pulled up data on a large screen. Yes, actually, I've found something that might explain everything, but first, I need to bring in someone else. Station scientist Dae Jung has been helping me analyze the data. A man entered the room carrying a data pad. Dae Jung was a quiet person who usually worked in the station's research department. He nodded to everyone and stood next to Mira. We've discovered something remarkable, Dae Jung said, and it involves not just Taimin but possibly all humans. Dae Jung placed his data pad on the table and projected a series of wave patterns onto the large screen. Everyone in the room leaned forward to see better. The patterns looked like gentle hills and valleys, moving in a steady rhythm. These are the electromagnetic frequencies we detected coming from Taimin, Dae Jung explained. At first, Dr. Mira thought it might be unique to him, but I asked to scan other humans on the station. We tested 15 people of different ages. He changed the image on the screen. Now there were many wave patterns, all slightly different but following the same basic shape. Every human we tested produces this frequency, Dae Jung continued. It's very faint. We only noticed it because we were looking for it specifically. The pattern becomes stronger when a person is calm, happy, or feeling safe. Velthra stood up and moved closer to the screen. His large eyes studied the patterns carefully. What does this have to do with the hatchling? Mira spoke next. We did something interesting. We played a recording of Taimin's frequency pattern near the hatchling when the boy was in another room. The baby dragon responded to it. Not as strongly as when Taimin is actually present, but it definitely calmed down. Shira, the copper-scaled specialist, made a sound of surprise. You're saying the hatchling can sense this frequency? That it responds to it? Yes, Mira confirmed. We believe that's exactly what's happening, but we don't understand why. This is where we need your help. Is there anything in Drakveth biology or history that might explain why a hatchling would respond to this specific electromagnetic pattern? The Drakveth specialists looked at each other. They spoke in their own language for several minutes. The translator devices didn't activate because they had turned them off for private discussion. Finally, Shira turned back to the group. "There is something," Shira said slowly. "It's from our ancient history before we developed modern technology. Our people have stories about the safe mother signal. According to legend, hatchlings could sense when they were near someone who would protect them. They would feel a warmth, not from heat but from something deeper, a feeling of safety." Another specialist, a male with dark green scales named Torvel, added more information. "Our scientists always thought these were just stories. As our species evolved and built cities and technology, we stopped noticing such things. We assumed hatchlings bonded through sight and smell, like most creatures. But perhaps we forgot something important." "Are you suggesting this frequency is the safe mother signal from your legends?" Commander Haywan asked. She had been listening quietly until now. "It's possible," Torvel said. "Our eggs are designed to sense safety. It's a survival mechanism from millions of years ago. But why would a human child produce a signal that matches our ancient frequency?" Dae-jung adjusted his glasses and pulled up a new image on the screen. This one showed two planets side by side. One was Earth, the other was the Drakveth homeworld called Draktor. "This is where my research gets interesting," Dae-jung said. "I started looking at the geological and biological history of both worlds. At first, they seem completely different. Earth and Draktor are in different parts of the galaxy, thousands of light years apart." He zoomed in on both planets, showing their surfaces. "But when I analyzed the core composition of both worlds, I found unusual similarities. Specific mineral combinations that are very rare in the galaxy. The chances of two planets having the exact same deep core structure by random chance is extremely small." Quan had been quiet during most of the meeting, but now he spoke up. "What are you saying? That Earth and the Drakveth homeworld are connected somehow?" "Not connected," Dae-jung said, "but they might have been the same place once. Billions of years ago." Everyone in the room went silent. Even the Drakveth seemed shocked. Dae-jung continued his explanation. "I'm talking about planetary drift on a cosmic scale. Current theories suggest that in the very early days of galaxy formation, certain regions were much closer together. Planets could have formed from the same cosmic cloud of dust and gas, then drifted apart over billions of years as the galaxy expanded and rearranged itself." He showed a simulation on the screen. Two planets formed close together, then slowly moved apart over millions of centuries until they were on opposite sides of the galaxy. If Earth and Draktor came from the same original matter, they would have similar core structures, and more importantly, the life that evolved on both worlds might share some fundamental characteristics. Not obvious ones, but deep patterns written into the basic biology. Velthra sat down heavily in a chair designed for his large frame. "You're suggesting that humans and Drakveth share an ancient common origin, that billions of years ago our ancestors might have been related." "I'm suggesting it's possible," Dae-jung said carefully. "I don't have complete proof yet, but it would explain why Taimin produces a frequency that the hatchling recognizes as safe. Both species might carry echoes of the same primordial biological patterns." Mira added her thoughts. "In human biology, we have many systems we don't fully understand. Small electrical signals that our bodies produce naturally, most of them seem to have no purpose in modern life. But what if they're ancient leftovers? What if they once served important functions that we've forgotten?" Shira walked around the room, thinking deeply. "In Drakveth history, we have gaps, periods where we lost knowledge because of disasters or wars. Our oldest stories talk about a time when our people could communicate without words. when we could sense each other's emotions and intentions. We always thought these were myths. Maybe they weren't myths, Torvel said. Maybe your species, humans, still have abilities that we Drakveth lost. Perhaps you kept the safe mother signal while we forgot how to produce it. Commander Haywan leaned back in her chair. This is incredible if it's true, but we still have an immediate problem. The hatchling is getting weaker every day. How does this information help us save it? Daejung looked at his notes. Now that we understand what's happening, we can try different approaches. If the hatchling responds to the electromagnetic frequency, maybe we can create a device that produces the same pattern. Then the hatchling wouldn't need to be near Taemin all the time. We tried something similar already, Shira said. We played recordings of the boy's voice. It helped a little, but not enough. Voice is different from electromagnetic frequency, Daejung explained. We need to recreate the exact pattern, not just sounds. I can build a device, but it will take time. Maybe 2 or 3 days. Velthra shook his head. The hatchling doesn't have 3 days. It might not have even 1 day. It still refuses to eat. Quan had an idea. What if Taemin goes inside the chamber with the hatchling? If being close to my son helps, maybe being right next to him would help even more. Maybe the baby would feel safe enough to eat. Mira considered this. It could work, but there are risks. We don't know how the hatchling will react to direct contact. It might become too excited, and we'd need to maintain sterile conditions. I'm willing to try, Quan said. My son wants to help. I've seen how much he cares about that baby dragon. Velthra stood up and placed a hand on Quan's shoulder. The gesture was formal and important in Drakveth culture. If you allow this, the Drakveth people will be forever in your debt. This hatchling is not just any baby. It comes from the oldest bloodline of our species. If it survives, it will one day be a leader of our people. My son doesn't need debt or payment, Quan said. He just wants the baby to get better. They made preparations quickly. Mira set up safety protocols. The chamber was cleaned and sterilized. Taemin was given special clothes to wear that would protect both him and the hatchling from germs. Quan sat his son down and explained what they were going to do. You'll go inside the chamber with the baby dragon. You need to stay calm and gentle. If anything feels wrong, you tell Dr. Mira immediately. Do you understand? Taemin nodded seriously. I understand, Dad. I'll be careful. Are you scared? Quan asked. The boy thought about it. A little bit. But the baby dragon needs me. Teacher Yuna says we should always help others when they need us. Quan hugged his son tightly. I'm very proud of you. They opened the chamber door. Taemin stepped inside slowly. The hatchling had been lying down, but as soon as it saw the boy entering its space, it lifted its head. Its golden eyes grew wide. For a moment, nobody knew what would happen. Then the hatchling made a sound like a happy chirp. It stood up on wobbly legs and walked toward Taemin. The baby dragon moved carefully, as if it couldn't believe this was real. Taemin knelt down and held out his hand. Hello, little dragon. I'm here now. The hatchling touched its nose to Taemin's hand. Its scales were warm and smooth. Then, to everyone's amazement, the baby dragon rubbed its head against the boy's chest and made a sound like a cat purring. Taemin laughed with delight and gently petted the hatchling's head. Outside the chamber, Quan watched with tears in his eyes. Mira was recording everything. The Drakveth specialists stood in silence, witnessing something they had never expected to see. A human child and a Drakveth hatchling, separated by billions of years and thousands of light years, had found each other across the vast emptiness of space. And somehow, impossibly, they fit together perfectly. Taemin sat cross-legged on the soft floor of the chamber, with the hatchling curled up in his lap. The baby dragon had finally stopped crying. Its breathing was slow and peaceful. Outside the chamber, everyone watched in amazement. Look at its stress readings, Mira said, pointing to her scanner. They've dropped to normal levels for the first time since it hatched. Shira studied the monitors carefully. The hatchling's body temperature has also stabilized. This is remarkable. After 20 minutes, Taemin spoke softly to the baby dragon. Are you hungry now, little one? You need to eat. The hatchling lifted its head and looked at the boy with curious golden eyes. Taemin pointed to the food bowl that had been placed inside the chamber. That's for you. It will make you strong. To everyone's surprise, the hatchling slowly climbed out of Taemin's lap and walked toward the bowl. It sniffed the food mixture, then took a small bite, then another. Then it started eating properly, making small, satisfied sounds between bites. It's working, Velthra whispered. The large dragon's eyes were shining with emotion. The hatchling is eating. Quan felt relief wash over him. He had been so worried about his son and the baby dragon. Now finally things seemed to be getting better. For the next hour, Taemin stayed in the chamber with the hatchling. The baby dragon ate well, drank water, and then curled up next to the boy to sleep. Its small chest rose and fell with steady breaths. Mira continued scanning both of them. The electromagnetic frequency from Taemin is very strong right now, and look at this. She pointed to her screen. The hatchling is producing a responding frequency. They're synchronizing with each other. Dae-jung took notes quickly. This is exactly what I needed to see. If I can map both frequencies, I can create a device that mimics the pattern, but I'll need more time to observe them together. Over the next few days, a routine developed. Taemin would spend several hours each day inside the chamber with the hatchling. The baby dragon, which Taemin named Ember because of her glowing silver scales, grew stronger and more playful. She started exploring the chamber, testing her small wings and making happy chirping sounds. When Taemin had to leave for meals or to sleep in his own bed, Ember would become sad but no longer panicked. She seemed to understand that the boy would come back. Dae-jung had also made progress on his device. He showed it to the group on the 4th day. This is a frequency emitter, Dae-jung explained, holding up a small, round device. It produces the same electromagnetic pattern as a calm, happy human. I've programmed it based on all the data we collected from Taemin and the other humans we tested. Will it work? Quan asked. Only one way to find out, Dae-jung said. They tested the device when Taemin was out of the room. Dae-jung placed the emitter near Ember's chamber and turned it on. The hatchling, who had started to look anxious without Taemin, suddenly became calm again. She lay down and closed her eyes, breathing peacefully. It's working, Mira said with excitement. Her stress levels are dropping. But after 10 minutes, Ember opened her eyes and looked around. She made a small, sad sound. The device was helping, but it wasn't the same as having Taemin there. It's a start, Dae-jung said. The device can help when Taemin isn't available, but the hatchling still prefers the real thing. While all this was happening, news about Ember and Taemin spread across the station. Soon, people from all over the galaxy heard the story. Scientists became very interested in Dae-jung's theory about Earth and Draktor sharing an ancient connection. A team of researchers from the Galactic Science Council arrived at Haven's Gate Station. They wanted to study the electromagnetic frequencies in humans. Commander Hae-wan organized meetings and made space for all the new visitors. One of the lead researchers was a being from a species called the Velti. She had 4 arms and silver skin that reflected light like a mirror. Her name was difficult to pronounce, so everyone called her Dr. Sill. This discovery could change how we understand the galaxy, Dr. Sill said during a meeting. If 2 species separated by such vast distances share biological patterns, it suggests that life in the galaxy might be more connected than we ever imagined. Dr. Sill wanted to test more humans. She set up equipment in the station's research lab and invited volunteers. Dozens of humans came forward. curious about what they might learn. The results were fascinating. Every human tested produced the electromagnetic frequency. The pattern was slightly different for each person, like a fingerprint, but the basic structure was the same. The frequency became stronger when people felt calm, safe, happy, or loved. "This is a fundamental part of human biology," Dr. Sill announced. "It's always been there. You just never had a reason to notice it before." Mira asked an important question. If humans produce this frequency, could other species produce it too? Or something similar? Dr. Sill nodded. "That's what we need to find out. I want to test beings from many different species. Perhaps this frequency isn't unique to humans. Perhaps it's an ancient signal that many forms of life once shared." Over the next week, the research lab became very busy. Aliens from dozens of species volunteered to be tested. Most of them didn't produce the same frequency as humans, but a few species showed similar patterns. A species of small, furry beings called the Lixti had a frequency that was close but slightly different. A species of crystalline life forms had something that might have been related but wasn't quite the same. And surprisingly, a species of ocean-dwelling creatures from a water world called Kelos produced a frequency that was very similar to the human pattern. "This is remarkable," Dr. Sill said, organizing all the data. "These species are from completely different parts of the galaxy. They look nothing alike. They evolved in totally different environments, yet they share this biological signal." Dae-jung worked with Dr. Sill to analyze the findings. They spent long hours comparing planetary data, looking for connections. What they found changed everything. All the species that produce similar frequencies come from worlds with related core structures, Dae-jung announced during a special presentation. Just like Earth and Draktor, these planets show evidence of originating from the same ancient cosmic region. He showed images on a large screen. The planets looked different on the surface, but deep inside, they shared similar compositions. Specific minerals, specific atomic patterns, specific qualities that were rare in the galaxy. Billions of years ago, this part of the galaxy went through a violent formation period, Dae-jung explained. Planets were created, destroyed, and scattered. Some worlds ended up very far from where they started. But they carried with them the fundamental patterns of life from that original region. Velthra stood up to speak. "You're saying that multiple species across the galaxy are distant cousins, that we all came from the same ancient source." "Not all species," Dae-jung clarified, "but some. The ones who produce this frequency. We're calling it the origin signal, because it seems to come from the origin point of life in this region of the galaxy." The news spread across the entire galaxy. It was the biggest scientific discovery in centuries. News organizations from hundreds of worlds reported on it. Philosophers and religious leaders discussed what it meant. Politicians talked about how it might affect relationships between different species. But for Taemin, none of that mattered much. He was just happy that Ember was getting better. The little dragon had grown bigger and stronger. She could fly short distances now, her silver wings carrying her around the chamber. She played with toys that Taemin brought her. She even started making sounds that might one day become words as Drakveth hatchlings learned to speak. Taemin still spent time with Ember every day, but not as much as before. The frequency emitter helped when he was at school or sleeping. Ember seemed to understand that Taemin had other things to do. She would wait patiently, playing or sleeping, until the boy came back. The bond between them was special. Everyone could see it. Ember would get excited whenever Taemin arrived, chirping and flying in circles. Taemin would laugh and play with her, telling her about his day at school. One evening, Quan sat with his son in their quarters. Ember was sleeping in her chamber nearby, the frequency emitter humming softly. "Do you understand how important you've become?" Quan asked gently. "People across the galaxy are talking about you and Ember." Taemin shrugged. "I just helped a baby who needed me. That's what friends do." Quan smiled and hugged his son. "You're right. That's exactly what friends do. But Quan knew that this was bigger than friendship. What had started as one boy helping one baby dragon had turned into a discovery that connected species across the galaxy. The origin signal was proof that life wasn't as separate as everyone had thought. Deep down, in ways that couldn't be seen, some species were family. The Drakveth government made an announcement. They wanted to establish a new program to study the origin signal and help species understand their connections. They invited humans to participate as partners. "This changes everything," Commander Haiwan said during a station-wide broadcast. "Humans are no longer just another species in the galaxy. We're now recognized as carriers of an ancient biological key, a signal that some species lost but we kept." For Velthra, the discovery had personal meaning. "This hatchling Ember brought us together," he said to Quan. "She helped us understand something we had forgotten. In Drakveth culture, we believe everything happens for a reason. Perhaps Ember's egg was meant to be damaged. Perhaps she was meant to find your son. Perhaps this was destiny." Quan didn't know if he believed in destiny. But he couldn't deny that something special had happened. His son and a baby dragon had formed a bond that revealed secrets as old as the galaxy itself. 3 months after Ember hatched, Haven's Gate Station had become a center of galactic attention. Scientists, diplomats, and curious visitors arrived daily to learn about the origin signal. The station had to expand its research facilities and add more housing for all the new people. Ember was no longer a tiny hatchling. She was now the size of a large dog, with silver scales that shimmered when she moved. Her wings had grown strong enough for sustained flight. She could circle the entire chamber multiple times without getting tired. Her intelligence was growing too. She understood simple commands and could even speak a few words in both human language and Drakveth. "Taemin, friend," Ember would say in her soft, musical voice. "Play now?" Taemin visited her every day after school. The chamber had been modified to be much larger, almost like a small park. It had plants, climbing structures, and even a small pool of water. Ember loved to splash in the water while Taemin watched and laughed. The frequency emitter device had been improved many times. Daejung and Dr. Sill worked together to create versions that could help other species too. The Lixti people, those small furry beings, had asked for emitters that produced their specific pattern. Some of their children had been having trouble sleeping, and the devices helped them feel calm and safe. The discovery of the origin signal had created new friendships between species. The Drakveth and humans formed a special alliance. They began working together on many projects, sharing technology and knowledge. Other species with similar frequencies joined this alliance too, but not everyone was happy about the discovery. Some species felt left out because they didn't produce the origin signal. They worried that species with the signal would form an exclusive group, leaving others behind. Commander Haiwan addressed these concerns during a galactic conference that was held on the station. Representatives from hundreds of worlds attended, either in person or through holographic communication. "The origin signal doesn't make any species better than another," Haiwan said firmly. "It's simply a biological trait, like having 4 arms or breathing methane instead of oxygen. What matters is how we use this knowledge to bring everyone together, not divide us." Dr. Sill supported this message. "Our research shows that all life in the galaxy shares some fundamental patterns. The origin signal is just one pattern among many. Every species has unique traits that are valuable. We must celebrate our differences while recognizing our connections." The conference helped ease tensions. Species began to see the discovery as an opportunity to learn rather than something to fear. Meanwhile, the research into ancient planetary connections continued. Daejung led a team that analyzed hundreds of worlds across the galaxy. They created a map showing which planets likely originated from the same cosmic regions. The map revealed that the galaxy was more interconnected than anyone had imagined. Life spreads in patterns, Daijung explained during a public presentation. When the galaxy was young, matter clumped together in specific regions. As the galaxy expanded and evolved, these regions drifted apart. But they carried the seeds of life with them. That's why we find similar biological patterns in places that seem completely unrelated. For the Drakveth, this knowledge had spiritual significance. Velthra spoke about it during a ceremony honoring Ember's growth. Our ancient stories tell of a time before time when all dragons lived in paradise together, Velthra said. We always thought this was mythology, but perhaps it was memory. Perhaps our ancestors remembered a time when our world was close to others, when we could sense beings like ourselves across small distances. The ceremony was beautiful. It took place in a special garden that had been built on the station specifically for Ember. Drakveth from across the galaxy attended, along with humans and members of other species. Everyone wanted to see the hatchling who had changed history. Ember stood beside Taemin, her silver scales polished and gleaming. She wore decorative bands around her neck and legs, traditional Drakveth accessories for young dragons. She looked proud, but also a bit nervous with so many eyes watching her. Taemin held her paw gently. It's okay, Ember. Everyone here loves you. Ember nuzzled against Taemin's shoulder. Taemin, friend. Always friend. Always, the boy agreed. Velthra approached them and bowed his head respectfully. Taemin, son of Quan, the Drakveth people wish to honor you. You saved this hatchling's life. More than that, you helped us rediscover something we had lost. We would like to offer you a title in our culture. You would become Ember's official guardian, recognized by our government and our people. Quan, who stood nearby, looked surprised. What does that mean exactly? Shira stepped forward to explain. In Drakveth culture, a guardian is someone who helps raise a young dragon. The guardian teaches, protects, and supports the dragon as it grows. It's a great honor and a great responsibility. As Ember comes from a royal bloodline, her guardian would have an important position in our society. Taemin looked up at his father. Can I do it, Dad? Quan knelt down to be at eye level with his son. It means you'll be connected to Ember for a long time. Maybe your whole life. Are you ready for that? The boy thought carefully. Ember is my friend. I want to help her grow up strong and happy. So yes, I'm ready. Quan felt proud of his son's maturity. Then you have my permission. The ceremony proceeded. Velthra spoke words in the ancient Drakveth language. Other dragons sang in harmonies that made the air vibrate. Taemin stood still while Shira painted traditional symbols on his forehead with bioluminescent ink that would fade after a few hours. When the ceremony ended, Taemin was officially recognized as Ember's guardian. The crowd cheered, and Ember spread her wings wide and roared her approval. It was a small roar, as she was still young, but it was strong and clear. The celebration continued for hours. There was food from dozens of worlds, music from various cultures, and dancing that involved species with very different body types, trying to move together. Taemin danced with Ember, the boy and the dragon moving in circles while everyone watched and laughed with joy. Later that night, after most guests had left, Quan sat with Velthra in a quiet corner of the garden. Thank you for honoring my son, Quan said. This means a lot to him. It's we who should thank you, Velthra replied. Your son gave us back something precious. Not just this one hatchling, but knowledge about who we are and where we come from. What happens now? Quan asked. With Ember, I mean. She's getting bigger. Eventually, she'll be too large for the station. Velthra had been thinking about this. There are options. Ember could return to our homeworld, where she would be trained in the ways of our people. Or we could make arrangements for her to stay here, if that's what you and Taemin prefer. She is unusual among our kind. She has a bond with a human that we've never seen before. Perhaps she's meant to live between both our worlds. I think Taemin would like that, Quan said. He loves Ember, but he also loves living on this station. It's his home. Then we'll find a way to make it work, Velthra promised. Months passed. Ember continued to grow, and so did the alliance between species who shared the origin signal. The Drakveth opened their archives to human researchers, sharing records that went back thousands of years. Humans shared their own history and technology. Together they made new discoveries. They found that the origin signal had properties they hadn't understood at first. It wasn't just about comfort and bonding. The signal also seemed to enhance certain types of communication. Species with the signal could understand each other's emotions more easily, even without words. This led to the development of new technology. Communication devices that used the origin signal could transmit feelings and intentions along with words. This made misunderstandings between species much less common. The galaxy was changing. Old barriers between different kinds of beings were breaking down. New friendships formed. New partnerships created amazing things. At the center of it all was a boy and his dragon playing together in a garden on a space station. One day, a year after Ember hatched, Taemin sat with her under a tree that had been brought from Earth. Ember was now quite large, about the size of a small vehicle. But she was still gentle with Taemin, careful not to knock him over with her tail or wings. "Do you remember when you were tiny?" Taemin asked, looking up at her. "You fit in my lap." Ember made a rumbling sound that was her version of laughter. "Remember, was scared. Taemin made safe." "You're not scared anymore, are you?" "No, strong now. But still need friend. Still need Taemin." The boy hugged her large leg, the only part of her he could easily reach now. "I'll always be your friend, Ember, no matter how big you get." Ember lowered her head so her golden eyes were level with Taemin's face. "Taemin, best friend. More than friend. Family." "Family," Taemin agreed, smiling. Quan watched from a distance, standing with Mira and Daejung. The three of them had become close friends during this journey. "Who would have thought," Mira said softly, "that a damaged egg would lead to all of this?" "Sometimes the most important discoveries come from unexpected places," Daejung replied. "We were looking at the galaxy one way. Now we see it completely differently." Quan nodded. "My son just wanted to help a baby animal. He didn't know he was changing history." "Maybe that's the point," Mira said. "The biggest changes come from simple acts of kindness." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching Taemin and Ember play. The dragon was teaching the boy how to make roaring sounds, and Taemin's attempts were making Ember laugh. Their joy was infectious. Other beings in the garden stopped to watch and smile. The origin signal research continued for years. More species were tested. More connections were found. The galaxy became a smaller, friendlier place as beings realized how much they had in common. Ember grew into a magnificent dragon, one of the most beautiful of her generation. But she never forgot the boy who had sat with her when she was small and scared. Taemin grew up too, eventually becoming a researcher like Daejung. His specialty was cross-species communication, helping different beings understand each other. They worked together, the human and the dragon, bridging worlds with their friendship. The story of the dragon hatchling who wouldn't sleep without the mechanic's son became legend. It was told on countless worlds, in hundreds of languages. Parents told it to their children as a bedtime story. Teachers used it to explain the importance of compassion and curiosity. But for those who were there, who witnessed it happen, it was more than a story. It was proof that sometimes the smallest act of kindness can echo across the stars, that friendship can cross any divide, and that the universe is full of connections waiting to be discovered, if only we're brave enough to reach out and make them. In the end, everyone was stunned not by science or politics or grand cosmic revelations. They were stunned by the simple truth that had been there all along, waiting to be noticed. We are not alone, and we never were. Deep in our biology, in patterns older than memory, we carry the proof that we belong to each other. All it took was one boy, one dragon, and one moment of compassion to help everyone remember.